For a year and a half, Hungary's state media banned him, would not let him on air, would not let him speak to the Hungarian people. They called him names. They slandered his family. They said his children wouldn't talk to him. They painted him as the cloven-hoofed devil. And then the Hungarian people voted, 3.3 million of them, the largest mandate in modern Hungarian history. And Péter Magyar, the president of the TISA party and Hungary's next prime minister, walked into the studio of the very propaganda outlet that had been lying about him for 18 months and sat across from the anchor who had been reading those lies. What followed was a masterclass in political confrontation. He called the outlet a lie factory.
In any case, I can assure you that we hold no personal resentment, but a core element of our program is that this lie factory will cease to exist after the formation of the TISA government.
He compared its propaganda to something Goebbels or a North Korean dictator would have admired. He named names. He cited court rulings. He listed the dead, hundreds freezing to death in winter, 30 to 40,000 dying annually from preventable diseases, 400,000 Hungarian children living in deep poverty, 1 million retirees below the subsistence level. He exposed the corruption.
1 million retired compatriots, Madam Editor, live below the subsistence level. 400,000 Hungarian children, while we are speaking here now, live in deep poverty after 16 years of the Orban government.
Lorink Mészáros, Viktor Orban's strawman, who can't read or write, became 5 times richer in 10 years than the English royal family did in 400 years.
Lorink Mészáros, whom everyone knows, I believe even the viewers here, is Viktor Orban's wallet and his strawman. Lorink Mészáros is the kind of person who can't read or write, and frankly can't really speak much either. I met him. He became 5 times richer in 10 years than the English royal family did in 400 years.
160 billion forints burned on propaganda, EU funds that Orban couldn't bring home, and he promised to stop it all, to suspend the fake news service, to restore independent media, to bring home the money, to finally speak about what matters. The anchor tried to interrupt, tried to deflect, tried to change the subject to European politics and green MEPs. Magyar would not let her. He had waited a year and a half. He was not going to be silenced again. Let's watch. I'll break it down.
Good morning, Mr. President. Congratulations on the result. And naturally, what's on the minds of the Hungarian people now is how those promises made during the campaign will be fulfilled, and how the lives of Hungarians will change. What is your response to this? Pause. As you're aware, back in February, they introduced their government programme. They conducted an international press conference, and furthermore, they also publicly announced their commitments for the initial 100 days.
Good morning, Madam Editor. I'll just look around for a moment, and it feels good to be here. 1.5 years after September 26th, 2024, when I was last here, when you let the leader of the biggest party in.
Excuse me, Mr. President. We called you on multiple occasions.
I don't remember.
We have emails, and obviously the 2 press departments will clarify this among themselves through correspondence, because these emails are available.
Madam Editor, we already played this on Kossuth Radio. They didn't call or let me in until January 2026. If you'd forgotten, there was a protest here too, everything right here on Konyugunda Street, but there's no problem. I bear no personal grudge, not even for you slandering me, my family, my loved ones, and ordinary people, morning, noon, and night.
That we insulted his family, please don't be offended, but on behalf of all my colleagues, I'd like to correct that.
It's been said quite a few times here in the studio that my young children aren't speaking to me, even though they live with me, and then yesterday I was with them. For the first time in many weeks, I finally managed to have lunch with them.
I don't believe that a presenter said this.
In any case, I can assure you that we hold no personal resentment, but a core element of our program is that this lie factory will cease to exist after the formation of the TISA government. We will immediately suspend this fake news service that is currently operating here, and we will establish independent, objective, and impartial conditions together with other parliamentary parties and professional organizations. That this propaganda that was going on here, would you allow me to finish, given that I've already waited a minute and a half for these few words?
I didn't mean this answer.
Thank you very much. So we will create the conditions for independent, objective, impartial media. We know there's no perfect media, but what has been going on here since 2010, something that even Goebbels or the North Korean dictator would have admired, where not a single true word was uttered, that certainly cannot continue. I see that ever since Hungarian people, with unprecedented authorization, changed the system on April 12th, because never before have so many people voted for a political community as they did now for TISA, around 3,300,000 people, and we will have at least 140 representatives in parliament, maybe 142. I see. There's been some movement since then, and for the first time in a year and a half, my press conference was broadcast live, which was the day before yesterday.
Given the respect due to his office.
I'm still the TISA party president, Ms. Editor, still.
But he is Hungary's next prime minister.
Well, we'll see about that. I will not be going to the president, to the outgoing president, and I truly hope that he will schedule or convene the session of the Hungarian parliament at the earliest possible date. I can tell you, also in response to your question, that the TISA government will represent every single Hungarian citizen. It will represent Fidesz voters, Mi Hazánk voters, just as it will represent TISA voters. Every day we will work for this, I personally and my colleagues as well, so that every Hungarian person can live well and that there is order, peace and security in this country. And I'm very happy that they gave us the opportunity, that the Hungarian people give us the opportunity to prove, for example, to Fidesz voters and also to our compatriots who watch this propaganda that not a single word of the accusations made here is true. The TISA government will work for peace, and among other things, the TISA government will maintain the southern border fence. Unlike Viktor Orbán, we will not release 2,200 legally convicted human traffickers. Furthermore, unlike the current situation where Viktor Orbán's son, Gáspár Orbán, would have sent 200 soldiers to Chad, knowing that half of them might lose their lives. Unlike Gergely Gulyás, who would have considered sending soldiers to Iran if Donald Trump had asked the government to. The TISA government will continuously work for peace. And for example, an element of our program, and they already asked about this on Kossuth Radio earlier, is that we will maintain the utility cost reduction, but only extend it, because 1.5 million of our compatriots heat with firewood, where there was no utility cost reduction at all. But the Orbán government quadrupled the system usage fees. And Lőrinc Mészáros, pardon me, let me just finish, really. Lőrinc Mészáros, whom everyone knows, I believe even the viewers here, is Viktor Orbán's wallet and his straw man. Lőrinc Mészáros is the kind of person who can't read or write, and frankly can't really speak much either. I met him. He became 5 times richer in 10 years than the English royal family did in 400 years. Everyone feels the absurdity of this, and it's no accident that TISA received such a mandate. Because meanwhile, 1 million retired compatriots, Madam Editor, live below the subsistence level. 400,000 Hungarian children, while we are speaking here now, live in deep poverty after 16 years of the Orbán government. Hundreds of thousands of Hungarians don't get food, healthy food on their tables. And while here, in this live factory, Attila Várhelyi and his people burned 160 billion forints yearly with overpriced contracts and lies, 200 to 300 of our compatriots die, freezing to death in winter in their own apartment, in their own home. Meanwhile, since 2019, the government has not raised the social firewood budget, even though the price of firewood has more than doubled since 2019. And for instance, 20 billion forints were wasted here, even by you, on spreading the falsehoods of the non-existent TISA program, which the court has explicitly ruled to be entirely untrue, not a single word of it. Here at this very table, you listen to people who lied morning, noon and night. So editor, our program will be to bring home the EU funds that the Orbán government couldn't bring home. We will finally kickstart the Hungarian economy, which they haven't been able to start for 4 years. We will curb inflation, which was a European record.
Mr. President, we will now elaborate on these in detail in this conversation. At least, I had intended for us to use our time for all of this. For a moment, please allow me one more question regarding the suspension of news services. You stated at the International Press Conference, and I apologize if I'm not quoting correctly, but they said they would not take any steps with legal means, so everything only illegally.
Legally, no, not everything was lawful.
Legally, yes. For the suspension of news services to be lawful, it is obvious that the media law must first be amended. Will they do this and then proceed to suspend it? Because otherwise, our obligation, as stipulated in the media law, is that news services must be provided continuously.
That's right. I agree you had many obligations, but I don't want to personally hold you responsible for this duty, which is in the media law, regarding balanced news reporting. You failed to comply with any of it. I don't know how many court verdicts have been issued against you. No, I'm not talking about press coverage now. There are hundreds of rulings stating that you acted completely biased. Everyone in the free press has compiled that Viktor Orbán, I don't know, appears 343 times in a positive light daily, while I, the opposition leader, am portrayed as the cloven-hoofed devil. But no worries.
Okay, well, they changed the media law. Only after or before, because this is a legal violation.
I can repeat that there's no need to accuse us of breaking the law. It's like when you know, your own people here on Kunigunda Street in this propaganda factory, they accuse me of breaking the law. It's like when the shoplifter starts yelling at the police officer, "Don't you steal?"
I asked you a question.
We are going to proceed legally, and that dishonest news outlet we will suspend, and it will immediately restart when the independent...
So, according to this, you will interfere in the
Who
public
is
media's
that?
work?
I'm sure it's
You.
not me. I'm sure
And
it's
who is
not
that
me.
going to be?
Please don't confuse us. I apologize. With Raganan Talhu.
5 of them phrased it like this, that we would be suspending the news service. I'm sure you also.
Those familiar with Hungarian know such subjects. I can tell you, no, don't confuse us with Antal Rogam, who called in Attila Varhelyi every single week. But you here know this precisely. You could even say it live on air how it happened, how you received the orders on what to use to discredit the opposition party, TISA, and what lies to feed the people. We have precise knowledge.
Rogan Antar would probably know the answer to this question. I wasn't there. So
Varhelyi
Varhelyi Attila needs to be asked this question.
and your news falsifying director who has court papers proving it. Your leader, Pap Daniel, has court documents stating he is a black belt news falsifier, yet he's been here for years and goes to the Carmelite office every week, practically every day. A special briefing held in his office, the people working here told me, Madam Editor.
Mr. President, are you certain that for the next 4 years, this is what truly interests the people, the Hungarians, at this very moment? Isn't it, for instance, that you, for example, promised, and let's discuss these European Union funds? You did state at the international press conference that you'll have disagreements with the European Union, but you aim for compromise. Clearly, one key issue in this dispute is the unfreezing of EU funds, the unblocking of the frozen EU funds, to which Brussels gave a rather questionable answer yesterday. They said they wouldn't give them. Dane Daniel Freund perhaps put it this way: they won't give a blank cheque, not even to you. There are 27 conditions that must be met. I understand that in your government programme, there's an anti-corruption measure you intend to implement. This is one condition, but even Tineke Strick said, you know.
Excuse me, who?
A Green Party MP who...
I apologize. You are quoting individuals who have absolutely no bearing on the matter.
He said it's not legal for now, and they took it down.
I'll say it again, Madam Editor. You are misleading people.
Excuse me,
You're
they've just taken it off the agenda. I'm not misleading you. He said it. It was in the news reports, not just in ours.
Who
the
is
Green
she,
Party
madam?
representative.
But never mind. This has no bearing here. Madam, you're saying that as if I just said Trotsky Laszlo. It has no relevance in this.
All right, but don't argue with me about it. I can only tell you what the European...
No, you are pushing propaganda again, madam.
I'm not pushing propaganda.
With the President of the European Commission.
The European Commission reacts this way, or the European Parliament responded to this yesterday. I'm asking you a question about this, that you...
He briefly tells a lie and won't let me answer. Will you let me answer?
I'm not stating a lie. Anyone can check it in the news that was broadcast. I strongly object to the idea that I told a lie.
Madam Editor, you've been speaking for more than a minute now. It took me a year and a half to get into public media here. You are quoting people who have absolutely no authority regarding Hungarian funds. Yesterday, I consulted with the President of the European Commission, who does have authority, and I clearly told her, and we had already stated before the election, that the TISA government will fulfill 4 conditions. Conditions that are good for Hungarian people and for Hungarian businesses. And I'd like to tell you about these 4 conditions. One of them is indeed the anti-corruption measures. Hungary is practically the last to join the European Public Prosecutor's Office. We will establish the National Asset Recovery and Protection Office, and we will adopt other anti-corruption measures. This is one. The second is to make the Hungarian investigative authorities and the judiciary independent and restore their freedom. I hope we agree, even here in this studio, where the ceiling is very strong, that this is good for the Hungarian people and Hungarian businesses. The third thing, which they can especially rejoice about here on Kunigunda Street, in this factory of lies, is that we will restore the independence and freedom of the Hungarian press and stop the forbidden state support for propaganda. This government spends 600 billion forints, 600 billion forints annually on vile, deceitful propaganda. This money is missing from the Hungarian state healthcare system. 30 to 40,000 of our compatriots die annually from preventable, treatable diseases. This is the third condition. The fourth is the restoration of academic freedom. We will return Hungarian universities to the university community, taking them out of the hands of party loyalists. We will return research institutes to the researchers. That's all. And I don't care what kind of green representative you're quoting. This is just the old method.
Well, you'll discuss this with the Green MEP in the European Parliament.
Madam Editor, this entire deception, this lying propaganda, it must end. We will finally speak about what matters.
But this is not misleading. It has appeared in the news, and not just here.
This is an old method. It appeared in your news reports.
Is that...
You also reported, Madam Editor, that there's no internet in Germany. You even broadcast that people in Germany don't have sex. You reported anything, Madam Editor.
I don't believe public news.
But here they've told us everything, and it's very opposite. But now people are simply laughing, Madam Editor, for just a few more days.
Could you please tell me what your plans are regarding those tax benefits and family policy measures that the previous government introduced? What are the plans for CSOK, for rural CSOK, for pensioners' 13th, 14th month's pension, the 3% RA? I'll finish my question. And for mothers' tax exemption, and for those under 28's tax exemption.
We said it in the election campaign. If I'd had the chance to come in here, and they hadn't just lied here morning, noon, and night, I would have said it here too. No matter how much you smile about us keeping them, Madam Editor, do you not feel this to be quite unpleasant? That 3,300,000 people voted for a change of system against your vile lying propaganda, and you are still reading out the propaganda that was written by Rugan and his people.
I do not read out any propaganda. I resent that. In public media programs, presenters prepare themselves, so we do not read out any propaganda.
You can rest assured, all these questions have been answered. They have been answered, and I'll tell you once more, we are bringing home the EU funds. For 4 long years, there has been no economic growth in Hungary, Madam Editor.
So, let's discuss diversification.
No, finally. Not the editor lady.
This is a topic, I think, that really interests people, because it's very important for everyone what we're going to heat with next winter.
It has always been important, Madam Editor, and I'll say it again. It has always been important to people what they heat with. 1.5 million people heat with wood, and there's been no utility cost cut for them.
And the other 8.5?
Perhaps you overlooked it. Hundreds of our compatriots freeze to death each winter, and tens of thousands of children prepare for school the next day in 13-degree apartments, and the government did nothing. Instead, for example, it spent the money on this vile, deceitful propaganda.
So, will this be included in the first 100-day program?
Our program is, I hear, they whispered the question in his ear.
Nobody said a single word in my ear.
Our program is to make it more comprehensive.
Don't tell me something like that they asked me the question directly.
It's not like it's really well built for 160 billion.
No one whispered a single question into my ear. I understand your current technique is to make me lose my composure, but you won't. I strongly object to these challenges from you.
Madam Editor, we are very patient and peaceful. Just a few more days. Yes, I'm completely sure. From this point, I'll proceed to the President, who is expected to grant a mandate for government formation. I can tell you we're extending the utility cap, then let's get to the point. May I answer? We're extending the utility cap to firewood, for example. We are reviewing the quadrupled system usage fee, and you also asked about diversification. We explained that too. I would have been glad if I could have told the Hungarian people here during the election campaign that the most important thing for transparent governance will be to ensure energy security, that Hungarian people get utilities and fuel as cheaply as possible, and that this is sustainable. For 16 years, we had a government that had every opportunity, EU funds, international situation, to diversify energy procurement, so we wouldn't be exposed to, say, one direction, specifically the Friendship oil pipeline, but rather make it operational. If needed, expand, for example, the Adria pipeline, or, for example, the pipeline system towards the west or north. They failed to do that. They deliberately exposed our country to a single direction. But as you know, it became evident.
And would you maintain the utility price cap at its current level? Or is that going to change?
I can tell you this, it will only get better, because this is also a huge scam with which...
Excuse me, are you promising we'll pay less for gas and electricity?
I would like to provide an answer. Today, I wish to honor at least those 3,300,000 people who voted for us by allowing me to speak in complete sentences after a year and a half. Will you grant me that? That's very kind, thank you. I think viewers appreciate it too. So, the utility cost reduction works like this. Up to a certain limit, Hungarians buy gas and electricity at a reduced price. Above this reduced price limit, which is set low and, for example, isn't enough in cold weather, Hungarians pay 7 times the price for gas and twice for electricity. Well above the world market price and well above the procurement cost, Hungarian families under the Orban government paid for electricity and gas, even above the so-called reduced utility price. Hungarian companies, which provide jobs for Hungarians, giving work to our people, are paying the highest electricity prices in all of Europe. Madam Editor, what kind of utility price reduction are you even talking about? Only 1 in 20 Hungarian companies can export today, because our companies are uncompetitive, because they are buying electricity at the highest price, and they couldn't make energy efficiency investments, because Viktor Orbán couldn't or didn't want to bring home the EU funds. The 8 trillion forints that Slovaks, Austrians, Romanians and Croatians have already received in every country. I tell you, they drove our country into bankruptcy. They drove it into bankruptcy. According to all data, we have become the poorest and most corrupt country. And you are still pushing this propaganda. While
When do you intend to bring back all the EU funds and how much?
there are very strict deadlines. Unfortunately, by the end of August, it will be decided today if we can bring home a portion of the 4,000 billion forints from the new construction fund, whether we can reach an agreement and accept the necessary legislation. We will do everything in our power to achieve this. The Orbán government had 4 years for this, but they did nothing. They only vetoed, fought and lied here, for example, on your show, instead of bringing it home. This is, by the way, an act of treason, I just want to point out, a breach of trust. The Hungarian people have already lost 2 billion euros. That's 1,000 billion forints, Madam Editor, which we lost due to the Orbán government's negligence, lack of attention or even corruption. This is missing from Hungarian hospitals, from Hungarian schools, from impassable Hajdú-Bihar County roads, from Szabolcs-Szatmár-Bereg County roads, from the emptying Hungarian countryside. We will ensure that every euro, every cent is brought home, and we won't just bring it home, but use it well, use it efficiently, so party soldiers don't decide its fate. Not István Boldogs, not Simonkas, not Lazars.
What is necessary for efficient use? Let's talk about it.
Madam Editor, for example, I've been touring the Hungarian countryside for 2 years, reaching 700 settlements. This is about, for example, they're not building canopy walkways without actual canopies using EU funds, like the recently failed Fidesz representatives, who are, by the way, criminals.
I understand, but shouldn't we focus on the future now? I'll listen to their program.
We will be creating job-generating investments, and we'll be supporting Hungarian small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as fostering Hungarian family businesses to breathe new life into our Hungarian rural areas. The previous government gave thousands of billions to polluting South Korean and Chinese battery factories. These factories endangered the health of our children, our elderly parents, the safety of those working there, the purity of our air, our prime agricultural land, and our waters. Instead of that, we will support small and medium-sized enterprises, and we will implement genuine job-creating investments, just as the Poles are doing. They do it for everything, Madam
investments to
Editor.
expect?
For example, if we go to Batonia, then the local restaurant owner, or the local farmer, or the local beekeeper will receive support. It's not the janissary, not the oligarch, who in the Orbán system received thousands of hectares of state land, never sat on a tractor in his life, doesn't even know a cow's front from its back, but collects all the subsidies. It's the local young farmer, the local family entrepreneur, a lathe operator, a local plumber or gas fitter. I'm not thinking of Luring Mesaros or oligarchs, but a plumber or gas fitter. You know, this is how it works in Europe. In Europe, you constantly criticize and stir up against here, for example, in Poland, 3.5%.
So far, all we've been able to learn about this trillion is that, well, only restaurateurs can receive it.
No, that's not all we found out. Not all we found out, madam. We're bringing it back. The Orbán government has put this country into
understand, but
debt.
what is this money for?
What more time?
My question is, what is
I've
it
started
for?
to explain it. For example, on Hungarian hospitals, 1,000 billion, 1,000 billion. I'm glad if you consider this an answer. 1,000 billion forints, but this is also in our program. They just didn't let us in. 1,000 billion forints, that's not true. We're spending 1,000 billion forints on road development, on transport development, madam, because Hungarian roads are impassable and Hungarian MÁV is dying. We will spend 1,000 billion forints on energy efficiency and insulation programs, if you're interested, because I am answering your question. We will spend 1,000 billion forints on residential and corporate energy efficiency programs, which were stopped X years ago because EU funds aren't here. Once again, so Hungarian entrepreneurs can be competitive. We are going to stop the Orbán plan, which was intended to close 38 small rural hospitals. Viktor Orbán and his government wanted to shut them down. We will halt this plan and develop these rural small hospitals using European Union funds. Furthermore, in Budapest, we will establish regional top-tier hospitals, and alongside that, we will also develop the existing rural small hospitals, because already more than 1 million of our compatriots are currently without a doctor. 5 to 6 year waiting lists have formed under the Orbán government, while they spent money on their live factory. There are few doctors, and tens of thousands of healthcare professionals and nurses are missing from the system. These are our tasks. EU funds are incredibly important. But for example, I just wanted to give you an example. Poland is a good example, which, as you know, is often criticized in this studio. We have 3.5% economic growth. Imagine the high-speed train between Warsaw and Krakow going at 200, built with money from evil Brussels. While in János Lázár's Hungary, the railway track slows down. At most junctions, the train goes at 10 kilometers per hour. A locomotive catches fire daily, and the switch breaks. We have to fix these things.
Do you promise such a high-speed train in Hungary?
What's more, there will be a high-speed train between Warsaw and Budapest. My first trip will be to Poland, to Warsaw, the second to Vienna, and the third to Brussels, to bring home the money. And I would like to discuss these infrastructure investments, for example, with Donald Tusk. To speak on the core issue, let me just finish about the core issue, because we hear that for over 10 years people have seen everything discussed. Ukraine, Russia, Tehran, the American presidential election. But the core issue is missing, for the people.
A news anchor has a duty to fulfill, or a duty.
It became his duty, Miss Editor, and will stay that way.
So we can talk about foreign policy too, especially those that determine Hungarian domestic policy and...
The Hungarian people have proven that their history is still not written in Tehran, nor in Moscow, nor in Brussels, but on the Hungarian streets and squares.
Is it written in Ukraine?
No, they don't write like this. I'll start.
I'm just asking because Zelensky, you know, the Ukrainian president, already sent you yesterday.
How do you manage this without laughing? You should be finishing up because time is almost out.
Did the leader of a nation currently embroiled in a state of war put some questions to you?
This must be quite some training to get through this without laughing.
An ultimatum.
You'll be free in a few days too, Madam Editor.
What do they expect from you? For example, will Ukraine be able to receive this 90 billion loan thanks to your efforts? Until now, the previous Fidesz government blocked it.
That's not true, Madam Editor. In December, Viktor Orban accepted this package at the European Council meeting.
But he blocked it. That's why they don't get it. So why haven't they received it yet? If Viktor Orban didn't block it, why hasn't Ukraine received this money yet?
Why are you lying? Viktor Orban, correctly. May I answer this?
Answer it.
I actually want to praise the outgoing Prime Minister.
Regarding that question.
Excuse me, I know this is a system error right now, but I really want to praise the outgoing Hungarian minister. May I proceed? So, in December, at the European Council meeting, Prime Minister Viktor Orban successfully negotiated a specific arrangement, a so-called opt-out, which would allow Hungary, along with Slovakia and the Czech Republic, to remain outside of this 90 billion euro credit facility. And in light of this, with this particular condition met, Viktor Orban accepted it. He gave his full approval. He didn't go out for coffee. Imagine, not like before when unpleasant questions were voted on, he didn't go out for coffee. What's more, he didn't even ask the anti-Hungarian Slovak Prime Minister to vote for him. Imagine, he didn't even support the Hungarian-hating Romanian presidential candidate, what he did in Transylvania. So this happened, then they started blackmailing each other. And due to the election campaign, the PM did something that I think has never been seen in the European Union. That the European Council adopted a proposal. The heads of state and government, 25 or 27 heads of state and government, after very long and difficult negotiations, Hungary was correctly excluded from this credit facility. And now, at a purely technical level, the ambassador won't sign the document, but everyone knows that this is simply a lie.
But then why hasn't Ukraine received this 90 billion yet? Right, everything was about how it's not possible.
Well, that 90 billion euros isn't given out like this. Perhaps it reached public media this way from Rogan's camp, but generally the European
Look, the EC's view, Hungary prevented them getting it.
I can only say it again. Don't mislead the people. Orban Viktor accepted this and said something like that now towards the very end.
So after all, we weren't to blame for the campaign not getting Ukraine this 90 billion.
I don't think viewers can follow this anymore. It confuses even the viewers.
Of course not. That just confused me, didn't it?
Yes, so Viktor Orban accepted it, and he said something like this during the election campaign. As long as there's no oil, there's no money. You see, this is how he, this way, crudely simplified the problems around the Friendship oil pipeline. President Zelensky said, I've never spoken to him personally, but Viktor Orban has many times, that towards the end of April, the Druzhba and Friendship oil pipelines will restart. This is very important for our country in the next 30 days, even while the Orban government is still operating as a caretaker administration. But then, when Tisza also comes, the oil must flow to ensure Hungary's energy security. So, I believe that if it comes to Druz, Viktor Orban will waive his technical veto, just as the Slovaks also waived theirs. Viktor Orban's friend Robert Fico did so too, and so did the Czechs, by the way. Andrej Babis, the Czech Prime Minister who, by the way, invited me, and I'm very pleased that all of Viktor Orban's allies congratulated us. Yesterday I spoke with the Turkish
proper
president.
in diplomacy.
That's right. And I also invited these presidents and prime ministers here to our homeland. You probably know that this October 23rd marks the 70th anniversary of the 1956 revolution. And since the Hungarian people decided that we should celebrate this occasion not in a bad puppet state, but in a sovereign, free, independent Hungary, I am very glad that world leaders will also be here and stand by this beautiful country.
Péter Magyar, the president of the TISA party, Hungary's next prime minister, was our guest. Thank you for coming. And we would like to ask you, if your experts receive an invitation, please be kind enough to suggest they join us, so we can learn as much as possible about what awaits us in the next 4 years. What kind of life will Hungarian people have in the next 4 years? Thank you for...
Don't laugh at the very end. Thank you for the chance. All the best to you.
I don't usually joke about Hungarian lives.
No, thank you very much. All the best.
There is a moment in this interview that should be studied by every politician, every journalist, every citizen who cares about the difference between propaganda and democracy. Péter Magyar walked into the lion's den. He sat across from an anchor who had been complicit in slandering him for 18 months. And he did not flinch. He did not shout, though he had every right to. He did not storm out, though he had every reason to. He laid out the facts. He named the dead. He cited the numbers. He exposed the corruption. And he did it all while the anchor tried to interrupt, tried to deflect, tried to change the subject to European politics and green MEPs and the procedural details of EU funding. Magyar would not be moved. He had waited a year and a half. He was not going to be silenced again. The contrast between the two is stark. The anchor represents the old regime, the propaganda machine, the system that spent 600 billion forints annually on vile, deceitful propaganda while hospitals crumbled and children froze. She asks about process, about laws and amendments and the technicalities of suspending a news service. She does not ask about the 30 to 40,000 Hungarians who die annually from preventable, treatable diseases. She does not ask about the hundreds who freeze to death in winter. She does not ask about the 400,000 children living in deep poverty. She does not ask about the 1 million retirees below the subsistence level. She asks about procedures, because procedures are safe. Procedures do not require her to confront the human cost of the system she has served. Magyar, by contrast, does not let her hide. He brings the dead into the studio. He names the oligarchs. He cites the court rulings that proved the propaganda was lies. He reminds her and the viewers that 3.3 million Hungarians voted against the lie factory, that the mandate is unprecedented, that the days of this propaganda are numbered. He promises to suspend the fake news service, to restore independent media, to bring home the EU funds that Orbán could not, to kickstart the economy, to curb inflation, to stop the plan to close 38 small rural hospitals, to invest in healthcare, in roads, in energy efficiency. He names his priorities: hospitals, roads, energy efficiency, insulation programs. He names his principles: anti-corruption, independent judiciary, free press, academic freedom. He does not speak in slogans, he speaks in numbers. 1,000 billion forints for hospitals, 1,000 billion for road development, 1,000 billion for energy efficiency programs. He is specific, he is detailed, he is prepared. The anchor tries to interrupt him when he mentions Lorink Mészáros, the oligarch who became 5 times richer in 10 years than the English royal family did in 400 years. She tries to change the subject when he talks about the 160 billion forints burned on propaganda. She tries to pivot to European politics when he lists the conditions for EU funds. But Magyar will not be derailed. He answers her questions about the media law by pointing out that her own outlet has been ruled biased by hundreds of court verdicts. He answers her questions about EU funds by naming the 4 conditions his government will meet. He answers her questions about utility costs by explaining how the current system is a scam, how Hungarians pay 7 times the price for gas above a low threshold, how Hungarian companies pay the highest electricity prices in Europe. He is not afraid of her. He is not afraid of the studio. He is not afraid of the propaganda machine that tried to destroy him, because he knows that the machine is broken. The Hungarian people have spoken. The lie factory will be shut down, and the truth will finally have a place to speak. This interview is not just a confrontation. It is a funeral. The funeral of Orbán's propaganda machine. Magyar is not just the prime minister-elect. He is the executor of a failed system. He is the one who will sweep away the lies and build something new. The anchor asks him at the end to send his experts to discuss what awaits Hungary. She is already trying to position herself for the new era, but Magyar does not let her off the hook. He has said what he came to say. The viewers have heard it. The era of lies is ending, and Péter Magyar will be the one to end it.